All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you to everyone who has joined us today, Education USA Lagos members, members from Calabar, from Ibadan, from Rwanda, my colleagues in other West African countries. Thank you and welcome to our session on applying for your student visas. So congratulations to every single student who has received an admission to study in the United States. I know you're excited and you're wondering what's next. How do I go about applying? How do I go about putting together a solid application so that when I get in front of a consular officer, he or she is going to issue me that visa and I can resume my studies in the US. So it's great that you've been accepted, but there are certain things you need to do, and that's why we have today's session to put you through. I would like to say for those who joined us a bit late, please type any questions you might have in the chat. And at the end of each presentation, we'll go ahead and take those questions. Now, if you're applying from Nigeria, the embassy website is exactly where you need to go to apply for your student visa. And in this case, it's ng.usembassy.gov/visas. This website is going to be similar for different countries. So if you're applying from Ghana, it would be GH. If you're applying from Kenya, it would be whatever the acronym for your country is before usembassy.gov/visas. So please visit your country's website in order to know what you need to do in terms of applying for a non-immigrant visa. Now, there are different types of student visas. There's the F-1 visa, which is typically for academic students who are going to be full-time, studying full-time in the US, and they have a defined end of stay. Usually the school that admits them and they accept to attend would issue them what's called an I-20. And we're going to explain what the I-20 is and have an in-depth presentation on I-20s. Now, if that student decides to go with a dependent could be their spouse or their children, those dependents would also need an I-20 of their own, and they'll be issued what's called an F-2 visa. Now, if a student is applying for an exchange program, say like the Fulbright, the Hubert Humphrey Fellowship, a Pan-Atlantic program, whatever it is, they would be getting what's called a J-1 visa. But for the focus of our presentation today, we're going to be focused on F-1, F-2 student visas. If a student is going for a vocational or non-academic program, they would be issued what's called an M-1 visa. All right, so these are the different classifications of student visas that exist. M-1 visas are typically for studies that last for up to 1 year. Now, when should you apply for a student visa? I always say immediately you get your admission to the school that you've been dreaming about, that is when to apply for your student visa. Make an appointment early enough. We know that since COVID happened, it's been a bit more challenging getting a student visa appointment. But the great thing is that consular sections all over the world prioritize student visas. But you don't want to take that priority for granted. When they say they prioritize student visas, that means before mommy and daddy think of traveling on a B1, B2 for business or pleasure, they're going to consider students first. But they're only going to consider students as long as your school has not resumed, okay? You can be issued a student visa up to 120 days in advance of your program start dates. You can be issued a student visa up to 4 months in advance of your program start date. That simply means that you can actually get your student visa now in April and travel in August of the same year. So you don't need to wait until it's closer to the date before you apply or you schedule that appointment. You will not be allowed to enter the US on your F1, J1, M1 student visa earlier than 30 days, but you can get that visa, hold it, and you know you already have it. You can buy your plane ticket. You know it's cheaper when you buy early, and then you can wait, and then when it's about 30 days to when your school resumes, then you can resume. All right? Now, the service fee is a fee that has to be paid by all international students coming into the US to study. It's collected by the Student Exchange and Visitors Information System, the Department of Homeland Security. Your service fee is different from your visa fee. Each country has a separate visa fee. In Nigeria, the visa fee is $160. I don't know what it is in other countries, but it's completely separate from this fee that is collected by the Department of Homeland Security. It's paid directly to them. Now, your Form I-901 shows that your visa fee was paid. How do you pay your service fee, rather? Your Form I-901 shows that your service fee was paid. How do you pay your service fee? You visit this website, fmjfee.com. I highly encourage you to write it down because that is the most authentic way to pay your service fee. I know there are many agents or companies out there that may be able to assist students because maybe they have a bank limit, they can't pay more than $100 a month from their bank card, or they have certain limitations depending on the country. Those companies or agents might charge you an extra $50. That's their money. The money that goes to the US government is only $350. It's non-refundable, but you can use it for up to 1 year and you can apply it to a different school, okay? So if you decide you want to study in one particular school and maybe you change your mind and you want to go to another school, you can still use that same service fee within 1 year. Now, when you are admitted, before you go for your student visa interview, your school is going to issue you what's called an I-20. I already talked about this. And this is what an I-20 form looks like. This document right here will go in depth into what it entails, but you will see that it's a form that has the word F-1 clearly shown on the front cover. It will also have your service ID number and have so many more pieces of information that talk about you and your attendance at this particular school. When you receive that form, it's very important that you cross-check to make sure that all the information on the form is correct. Your name, your date of birth, the school you're attending, the course of study you applied for, and all those pieces of information. You're going to need that form to pay your service fee. You're going to need the form to apply for your student visa. It's going to be one of the documents you bring when you're going in to see the consular officer. You're going to need the form when you're entering the United States at the port of entry. You're not going to need the form if you have to get a driver's license. If you are of age and you want to drive in the US, it's one of the forms that is going to be required of you. Now, on the day of your visa interview, they're going to require that you bring in certain documents. This is like the basic list of things that you must come with. A valid international passport, because a student visa is not for US citizens. So everybody comes from a different country, a valid international passport. By valid, that means that if you look at the expiry date of your passport and you look at the date of your interview, you must have at least 6 months validity from that date of your interview. If you're going to be interviewed in the month of April, count 6 months: May, June, July, August, September, October. Your passport cannot expire before the same day in October, okay? If it's going to be expiring before that date, you need to get a new international passport. You need to get a barcoded DS-160 confirmation sheet. When you fill out your visa form online, at the end of your completion of the visa form, you're going to have a barcode page sent to you. Okay, that's a summary of everything you have filled out. That barcoded page is something you must go along with because the consular officer will scan it and see all the information that you filled online. You must book an appointment. So you must have an appointment confirmation letter. You must have your visa application fee receipt. When you pay, whatever bank or agency you pay to will issue you a receipt, and you must come with a printed copy of that receipt. You must come with an endorsed valid I-20. By valid, that means that the date of your resumption should not have passed. Some people take this for granted. Their school is resuming in August. Maybe let's say it's resuming August 10th, and they go for their visa on August 12th. That I-20 is no longer valid if you're appearing for your visa interview after your date of resumption, okay? And then you also need your proof of service payments. So these are all the documents that are needed. Now, the consular officer will ask you questions. They want to determine if you meet 4 of these requirements. And this is like the same kind of requirements all over the world. First, have you been accepted at an accredited school? The key word here is accredited, because some students have been accepted at a school that has no accreditation, especially for what they want to study. That's why it's very important to be sure that the school that you have applied to has accreditation or is accredited. Secondly, they want to be sure that you have enough funds to pay for your cost of study. They do not want you to go to the US and become a burden on the American taxpayer. Third, they want to be sure that you are a credible and you are a qualified student. That means you are prepared for your course of study. You know what it is you want to study, why you want to study what you want to study, what you would do with a degree in that field. It is very important that you are articulate about that. And fourth, they want to know that you will leave the United States at the end of your studies. They do not want you to come, stay in America, and become a burden on them. Okay, so those four criteria are things that you must meet. Now, according to the US immigration law, every student visa or every visa applicant is presumed to be an intending immigrant. The burden is on you to show that you do not intend to permanently stay in the United States. If you fail to meet one of these four criteria, unfortunately, you must be refused a student visa based on US immigration law. So your desire to stay on and go to medical school and buy a house, have a family, have children, become a US citizen, during your student visa interview, that is not when to share all that. You keep all that to yourself, okay? But you must be honest. You must be truly honest during your student visa interview. Now, when you're going into a consular section, and this is relevant for any consular section all over the world, you cannot bring electronics. A lot of times I meet students who tell me that they have a certain document, and I say, can I see the document? Oh, it's on my phone. Oh, it's on my iPad. Oh, it's on my laptop. No, you cannot come in with any documents. That's why I listed all the documents you must print and go into your visa interview with. You need to be really honest about your travel plans. Don't be cagey. Don't be dishonest. Don't hide anything that's important. Even if you've been denied in the past, please know that the consular officer already has your records on their system. So if you come in front of them and you tell another lie, you could be banned for anywhere from 5 to 10 years. So you need to be truly honest. If you have siblings in the US, don't mention one sibling and leave out the other two because you think, oh, it doesn't make your case look good. Be totally honest. If you're asked, you need to be able to answer. You need to be prepared to answer questions about how you applied. How did you find all the schools you applied to? Why did you choose that one particular school? What is your plan for your study? Some of you are starting at a community college and you intend to go on to a 4-year institution and graduate from that 4-year institution. You need to be knowledgeable about that process. What schools does that 2-year institution have a transfer agreement with? If you're going to a community college and they have a transfer agreement with ABC, XYZ institutions, you need to be able to call out the names of those institutions and say that you've done your research, you're going to do your first 2 years here, you're going to transfer here. You need to be prepared to answer questions about who is paying, their financial abilities. This is not a situation where you don't know why or how your parents make money. If your father is a banker, for example, what is his role in that bank? How much does he earn in a year? If it doesn't make sense based on what's on your I-20, ask your parents or ask your sponsors to give you details. For example, some people's families are combining money from their business, money from landed property, money from their salaries, money from pension, money from a fixed deposit to make up the cost of attendance and paying their children's school fees. So you cannot be clueless about that. You have to know, okay? If your parents have a combination of things that the financial documents they put together to show the school that they can afford to sponsor you, then you need to know about that. Be honest, okay? I can't overemphasize this. Don't rehearse a speech in front of a mirror and that's the only information you know. You need to be forthcoming. I always tell my students, you need to be generous with information. When they ask you one question, You need to be able to answer all the baby questions that might come out as a result of that one question. For example, what school have you chosen? I've chosen to attend Columbia University in the city of New York. I'm going to be studying electrical engineering because keep talking. Don't just say Columbia. Which Columbia? Is it the one in Chicago or the one in New York City? You know, they have to ask you 3 more questions to get out which Columbia University. That does not help your case, all right? Don't use touts, don't use visa agents. This is something you can do on your own. You're smart people. If you've been able to apply to school by yourself, you filled out those forms, you corresponded with the admissions reps, you can fill out your visa information yourself. Trust me, I've seen people use agents and touts. They make mistake on their personal information and then they have issues for a really long time. You don't need that. Some of the questions they are going to ask you could include, why did you pick the school? What are you planning on studying? Did you apply to any other schools? Be honest. I tell my students, this is your time to brag. I applied to 5 schools or I applied to 10 schools and I got into 7, but I chose this one because, did you take any entrance exams? If you took the SAT, the ACT, the TOEFL, if you did like a test for the school, a placement test, tell them. Who will be paying for your studies? You need to know. You need to know. You need to know what they do for a living, everything they put together for you. What are your plans for after you finish school? You need to be really honest about all these. So these are just sample questions that you think about. So you need to schedule your interview as soon as possible. I don't know, if there's any way to say this and say this and say this. I know some people are still waiting for admissions to maybe better schools, but I'm encouraging you to go with the school you have right now because those dates that you see are so few and far between. Make sure your service is up to date. If you start with one school and maybe you change your mind, make sure that that service form, that's your I-20 is up to date. You might want to bring extra documentation to the interview. You might not be asked. The consular officer might not look at it. But if you have your transcripts, if you have like your terminal results from your school, if your school did the WASI, or you did an IB program or an A-level program, you might want to come with the results to show that you're an excellent student, okay? Be prepared to discuss what it is you're going to study. That question will definitely come, okay? Why are you studying X, Y, Z? So be prepared to talk about that. Now, if you have additional questions, I encourage you to visit ustraveldocs.com. It's a global website that can be accessed from any country in the world, or travel.state.gov or educationusa.state.gov. These websites can help address any questions at all about anything I have talked about. And if you are in Lagos, Nigeria, you're applying from Lagos, Nigeria, you can send an email to lagosniv@state.gov if you have any questions regarding the application, your student visa application. If you're also in Nigeria, if you want to call, speak to a call center representative, because you might be having technical issues with either filling the form or registering your email or whatever technical issues you might have, these are numbers that you can call. I encourage you to take a screenshot. They are open Mondays to Fridays, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Nigerian time. Or you can send an email to support-nigeria@ustraveldocs.com. Support-nigeria@ustraveldocs.com. So this is the end of my presentation. I will be happy to take any questions. Thank you.